So, welcome everybody to today's local government education program brought to you by the University of Illinois Extension in cooperation with Rural Partners, an Illinois rural development organization. My name is Mike Delaney, and I'm a Extension community and economic development educator based in Ogle County up here in northwestern Illinois. And as you all know, today's webinar is Entrepreneurship Education in Illinois' Rural High Schools. Let's begin with a few quick housekeeping notes. All going to be familiar to everybody. I will be recording today's webinar, and at the conclusion of today's presentation, all registered participants are going to receive an email with access to the recording of the webinar. If you didn't register, but somebody shared the link to the program with you, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to make sure that you receive those materials, please put your email in the chat box to let us know that you'd like to receive the materials. Also, if you wouldn't mind just making sure that during the presentations, please keep yourself muted just to make sure that we don't have any background noise. We're trying to get a clean recording and have an opportunity for the presenters to have clean and understandable recordings. So would appreciate that. As always, if you've got questions or comments which are arising during the main presentations, drop them into the chat box and we will address them in the Q&A period following the presentations. At this point, I'd like to introduce Ann Silvas, representing Rural Partners. Ann is a board member as well as the secretary of Rural Partners. And in her day job, Ann is Illinois Extension's Assistant Dean for Community and Economic Development. Ann, please introduce Rural Partners.
Mike, it's nice to be here. I'm going to put my Rural Partners hat on because these webinars are provided in partnership with Rural Partners, the Illinois Economic Development Council, and University of Illinois Extension. So we really appreciate the partnership. Allows us to serve the needs across the state with Extension's role and Rural Partners' role. So it's great to be here, and I'm thanking the two presenters for bringing us really good and pertinent information. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Ann. Now, today we're absolutely delighted to offer this program related to entrepreneurship in Illinois. I imagine most of us are here today because we recognize that entrepreneurship is an important engine of job creation and economic development, and that promotion of entrepreneurial initiative in small communities across Illinois through education should really be a priority for policymakers around the state. We're fortunate today to be able to hear from two individuals, Lee Hartman and Aaron Seitz, who've been directly involved in entrepreneurship education in Illinois high schools. Since retiring from a career as a family and consumer sciences teacher at the high school level, Lee Hartman has been involved since 2013 with the Whiteside Area Career Center's Creating Entrepreneurial Opportunities, or CEO, program in Whiteside County. Aaron Seitz created and ran the Social Entrepreneurship Program at Oregon High School in Ogle County from 2017 through 2021. He's now the head of instructional design at Synthesis School. Both Lee and Aaron hold master's degrees in curriculum and instruction. Lee and Aaron are going to give us some insight into the challenges their respective programs are intended to address, as well as what elements a community might need to have in place in order to pursue development of such programs. Lee, I think you're up first.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. It's an honor to talk about CEO, and as I do so, I'm representing many states and many programs, and I think it's worth a little bit of history about this program so that it's fairly represented. So what we're really talking about here is getting rid of the silos between education and business. And that's what happened when Craig Linvall, which is a name people may know across the state, started this program with businesses down in the Effingham area. After about 5 years of success, they said, this is too good to keep to ourselves, let's branch out. Ironically, the director at the Whiteside Area Career Center at that time heard about it at a conference, as did a local business person at a different conference. So they put their two heads together and said, we need to bring this here. So that's how I then got involved, and that was 11 years ago. So I'm really proud that we are one of the first here in the Sauk Valley CEO programs nationwide, right after Effingham. So just to update you with that entity, the Midland Institute for Entrepreneurship oversees all of the programs. There are now over 70. They operate in 10 different states. So that's a little bit about that. What it means for us here locally in the Sauk Valley area is that businesses are all in. The way the CEO program works is they support it 100% financially. So unlike the other programs at the Career Center where schools pay tuition for students to attend, the businesses pay the student tuition in order to keep the program operating. That means not only are they active from the financial standpoint, but we also have a CEO board that oversees the program locally. There are business people that sit on that board alongside educators, which is really awesome also. And then they also provide a whole array of business tours, approximately 40 to 50 in a year's time. They provide speakers for the program. You may have noted that I called myself a facilitator rather than a teacher, which means I don't stand and deliver lessons. I go get the person in the community who can best give that financial lesson or that marketing lesson for the class. We also meet in a business setting. So that makes the CEO program unique for meeting space. And that leads perfectly into what does this mean for the students? So students have to be accepted into the program. There's an application process. The board does the selecting, and then the students have to be willing to drive every day to that location. So as I mentioned, we never meet in the school setting, so they can't get on a bus and be dropped off. They have to drive to the location, which then requires full support from parents. It's a big deal to commit to the program. It really is. On top of that, because we are in businesses every single day, students are required to dress professionally. We are visitors in those professional settings, and that is part of what we expect. Students view a calendar that I put out there. I don't print any special thing for them. It's all digital. It's their responsibility to see where we're going that day, to drive themselves to the location, to use their GPS. And so the responsibility is shifting from less teacher-driven ownership to more student-driven and ownership in the program. To give you an idea of what the classroom for me looks like, the first year I had 23 students from 12 different schools. So a big part of the program is helping students learn what it is like to collaborate, problem solve, communicate, think critically and creatively, all workforce skills, which we are trying to get to students to master. And then with the 40 to 50 business tours, as well as the speakers coming into the classroom, students are surely learning so much more about their area than they ever knew before. And that's really the beauty of this program. And that's the bringing of business and education together. I'm going to turn over to Erin here shortly because I know that we share similar things with what we do, and yet we're different. But the bottom line is we want those two entities to work together to give students a really meaningful experience. So look, there was one other thing I was going to mention. I'll turn it over to Erin to give an overview of what he does, and we can go from there.
Thanks, Lee. As Lee mentioned, the CEO program and the social entrepreneurship program that I started at Oregon High School share the core philosophy. And in three the way I framed it in my head is I wanted a program that was going to be active, meaning getting kids out of their seats. This is an upper level, at least for me, it was an upper level high school course, juniors and seniors. And at that time, we as educators have to ask ourselves, is the time that they're in with us better spent in a seat, passively receiving information, or is it better spent out doing, like putting on, as Lee said, the clothes of a professional, an acting professional, engaging with the community? So I wanted something that was active, just like CEO, and I took a lot of inspiration from the CEO program in that. The second philosophy that we share, and many entrepreneurial programs share, is application. So with CEO, the students are creating a business plan. It's real. It's not virtual. Like, it's not a simulation. This is a real business plan that they pitch. Similarly, the students in the social entrepreneurship program designed, got investment dollars, and ran their own social enterprises in the second semester. So I wanted anything that they did of substance, any summative assessment needed to leave the classroom. It needed to have some sort of application into the real world. Because again, these are students who are at the phase of their life where they're about to leave, right? Many of them have one foot out of high school already. And rather than sort of constrain them and say, no, you have to take a test or do another worksheet, it's saying, see how your work works out there. That's your new, grounds, right? That's your new playground. So active, applied, and the third was authentic. And Lee spoke to this when she mentioned bringing in community speakers. What can we do to create stakes in the game? As a teacher, I could tell when information was going in one ear and out the other. And I could talk to them about, financial decisions. And again, they'd be like, yeah, you and everybody else, Mr. Seitzy, like I'm with you all the time, sure. Bring in a banker and suddenly everything changes, right? Bring in someone who, even on a Zoom meeting, who has experience in marketing or ran their own business. Bring in someone who's trying to pitch their business to a Shark Tank. Bring them in, and suddenly everything carries a ton of meaning because it's authentic, it's real. And that authenticism carries into what they create. How do we create stakes in the game? So for current education and the current paradigm, it's grades. Sure, the stakes in the game are grades, but do we want students motivated by grades? Are grades the factor that we're saying this is the stakes in the game, this is the most important reason why you're in high school? Or do we want them developing intrinsic motivations, intrinsic stakes? Do we want them putting themselves on the line, taking risks? I hope we get more questions along these lines, but I think Lee and I will agree that our students are very nervous when they start. And confidence is not a skill that you can learn about on paper and take a test and get an A in. Neither is professionalism, neither is, design process or entrepreneurial mindset. So again, the core philosophy, the pedagogy that entrepreneurial programs really need to adopt is moving away from tests, paper, and content experts and towards facilitation of experiences. The students learn not because I tell them what to learn, but because they have an experience that causes them to need information, hone their skills, and then I'm here to say, okay, what is the conflict that you're facing, right? And where are we going to go to get that information? Who can we ask in the community? Does anybody here have any social connections that we can help with? How do we get this person through that obstacle? Now, I can't plan for that because I didn't know what business this student was going to come up with. I didn't know what obstacle they were going to come up with. But through going with those experiences, they really need that stuff. And that motivates them to not just learn it, but integrate it into who they are, right? Into their character. So again, what Lee and I would agree on is that we aren't teaching content, we're teaching mindset. If you want to do something while you're watching this, Google entrepreneurship mindset, entrepreneurial mindset. You have to spell entrepreneurship, that's the downside. It's also one thing kids learn to do is how many E's there are in that word. But when you see that, no matter what response you get from Google, you will agree that all of the skills of the entrepreneurial mindset are skills that students need when they graduate. And come back at me, right? Push back if you disagree. But anything that you see that says entrepreneurial mindset, you'd say, yeah, my graduates need that. My students need that. They won't get that from a lecture. They won't get it from an activity. They won't get it from a test. They will get it by practicing it. And so that's what both of us have to do, both of us are working on. Why I'm here is to give a message that it's also possible. CEO is a great model, and I love it and I endorse it. It's also possible, watchers, viewers, whoever's with us, participants, it's also possible to build this in-house. And I didn't adopt a program, I did some research, and I just started it. And the key difference is I wanted it to be customized to the students that I had. And I wasn't comfortable adopting and sort of trying to put a program in there. So I wanted it to be customized, and I wanted it to be a social benefit. The fourth sector of the economy, right? We've got private, public, and nonprofit are the sort of three sectors of the economy. But the fourth sector, the for-profit, for-benefit sector, is fast growing. It's got the imagination of the younger generations, right? Millennials and down are really enamored by making a difference. And so I wanted my program to mandate that whatever businesses the kids started and ran had to have a social, economic, or environmental benefit as part of their business model, had to be baked into the business model. So that was one key difference. And the other key difference is that I wanted them to actually run it so that they could either see success or see failure and reflect on that. And so my students ran their businesses in the fourth quarter. And I don't want to spoil alert anything, but with all varieties of success. But yeah, besides that, I think what Lee mentioned about why we do what we do and why we're excited and how it's growing, I hope that sort of carries on to the rest of you.
Thanks, Aaron. Lee, could you spend a little bit kind of talking about you talked about the fact that your students were out there on a daily basis, visiting 40 to 50, doing 40 to 50 business tours. I assume that's in per academic year?
Yes, that is correct. I think when you talk about rural communities, just to back up a second, the CO program particular model is often by county. And so we're a little bit different here. We're one of the few in the nation that involve 18 schools. We're much larger here, but in smaller, like down south in Southern Illinois, many of the CO programs are countywide. So the beauty of that is it allows students to learn about nonprofits and, private, public entities that exist that they don't even know about. Like Aaron said, getting them out there and actively involved helps them to understand, even with that 1 foot out the door, where they want to go someplace. That's all fine and good, but maybe, just maybe, you might want to come back. So part of entrepreneurship, I think, is helping students understand that there's so much here than you even know or realize. It completely changes your view of your community. And we have statistics that say that, when students take their pretest and their post impact survey of what the program did for them, we see those numbers of, I would consider coming back here, go up significantly. And so that's just really cool for rural areas. It was cool for the South Valley area to see those numbers change like that. And something else that Aaron said that I think is important too is students in a traditional education situation come into the classroom and will have the mindset of, what do I have to do to get an A? Tell me what I have to do and I'll do it. And there's no thinking behind that. And I'm not putting down educators, because I was one for 33 years. And there's some good reasons why we have rubrics that tell them exactly what they need to do to excel. There's good reasons for those, but there also has to be a place where they get the information, as Aaron mentioned, because they need it. And just to give a specific example, when my students put together their class business project to generate a cash flow, I don't even tell them what the word cash flow means. They figure it out. So now we have to do this, and they get money for sponsorship. They sell advertising. They'll be asked to, hey, we need an invoice, and we'll pay you for the advertising. And the students are like, what's an invoice? Well, because you need it and you need to know that information, now they go find it. as Aaron mentioned, you give them a textbook with a chapter on invoices, it means nothing. But I need an invoice now because I have to have it. Now it's meaningful learning. And that's just really cool as well. So I probably shifted from what you said, but it made me think of some of the things Aaron said, kind of all tied together there.
Could you talk a little bit more about well, I guess my first question would be, the CEO program targets which class levels? Is it just juniors and seniors? Is it freshmen through seniors, all 4 years of high school?
It is just juniors and seniors.
Okay.
And, you know, we talk about different models of entrepreneurship education. There's so many great things, you know, Aaron, the development within the school, in-house, that's cool. There's things you can do differently there. There's things we can do differently because we are outside of the school. We're maybe bigger, more kids from different schools that don't know one another. It's different, but they're both so good. So yeah, I just think lots and lots of opportunities to develop this. And we have juniors and seniors. We're a 90-minute class period, 2 credit hours daily, every day of the week. So that's pretty cool too. And, you know, I also know of a program that's for 8th graders. It's an in-house program for 8th grade students, and they visit this entrepreneurial mindset every Friday, all year long, just on Fridays during one period. That's cool too. So lots of options for whatever the listeners think will work in their area.
Can you talk a little bit about the trade fair?
So, you know, there's some specific curriculum. It's not even curriculum really, but there are some specific things that in order to be called a CEO program, we must do. And one of them is they must create a class business of some type, whether it's a product or an event. But it requires them to write that business plan. And that's one of the first things they do. And once that cash flow gets there and they have a bank account, and again, as Aaron mentioned, real money, it's not pretend, it's not a textbook. That money is then used as seed money as they each figure out what they want their individual business to be. And then they write their second business plan. They pitch that to our CEO bankers. They request a piece of that money. They may or may not get it if their plan isn't solid. And then they buy their inventory, they make their product, whatever it might be. We don't require the social side of it, but I love what Aaron mentioned about the current generation. Gen Z is known for caring about people, environment, saving the world, making a difference. Typically, my students give a portion of their profits after their trade show to a particular entity. What they decide to do with their business when the trade show's over is entirely up to them. They can keep it going. They can fold it. They can bring it back. Some do that. They bring it back at Christmas. They see it as an opportunity to make some money. And then they close it down again, go back to college, whatever works for them. They own it. It's theirs. They do what works for them.
Yep. Very similarly for social entrepreneurship, the kids spent the first part of the first semester as a project, a sort of a side project. They had to create 2 different events in teams. And then those events created revenue, and that revenue went in a bank. And then they also had an investor night where we invited community, parents, local businesses. We rented out a space, and they had their boards and their prototypes and their business plans. And they were seeking donation, like not donations, but investment dollars, actual investment, meaning repayable. And then they put all that in a Google sheet. They had to make their own sort of finance sheet and would track that. They would spend money, make money over the course of second semester. And at the end, if they had profit, they kept it. If they didn't, then they wrote to their investors. They informed their investors of their products every month. They would have a monthly investor report that went out to all the people who would donate to the program. Basically a microcosm of what it takes to start a company, right? What it takes to start a solopreneurship or a small group entrepreneurship. The question in the chat I wanted to address, can you discuss some of the businesses created and how many the ongoing percentage are? So I'll share with you really quick in the chat just a link to some of the 2021 student businesses. They were required to make a small website. so don't expect a lot, because these are, people who are just starting with sort of digital design. So you can see sort of what it sort of looks like there. But the second question, how many are ongoing? I want to challenge that as a success metric. Because if I said 100%, you might say, oh, that was a very successful program. And if I said 0%, you might say, oh, that's a not successful program. But I really don't think Lee or I judge the success of the program by the number of businesses that stay on. These are 17, 18-year-olds. Many of them are trying to start a business or make a business plan while also navigating college applications, school, sports, relationships, graduation, right? Well, all this stuff comes next. So for them to do all that and act like adults in the business world is a ton of work. So for me, very low percent carried on after they graduated, even if they made money, because the partners split ways. But again, I don't want anybody listening to put in their head that as a metric. And Lee, you can agree or disagree there, but I bet we're on the same page there. But instead ask the kids, do you feel more prepared for life? Do you feel more prepared for your next step? Whether or not you're going to start a business. Do you feel more confident? Do you feel like you can call someone on the phone and talk to them? Yes, that's hard for kids. Do you feel like you can shake someone's hand, look them in the eye, and tell them what you're thinking? Is this a skill they need for life, for college, for workforce, right? So ask them that, and you get amazing results, right? So hope that helps in the chat, and also thanks for the question, and I hope we get some more.
I absolutely agree 100%. I mean, how do you measure success? And that's one of the first things I almost have to deprogram my students to know what success is. It's not necessarily an A in the class. I mean, there's so many different ways to measure it, for sure.
Question on the, go ahead, Aaron.
Nope, go ahead.
I was going to ask, does most of the work that the students experience in these classes, is it individual, or do they do team businesses, or is it a mix of both?
For me, it was either. Students could work individually or in small groups.
Okay.
Same.
Interesting. What was the more frequent choice, to go solo or to work?
In CEO, they mostly go solo. I prefer they go solo because then it's all on them, but there's so much learning with the partnership. It's a whole new ball game. I usually bring in some speakers that have a partner, and they talk very definitely about, some of the stresses of being in a partnership, especially family-owned partnerships. And sometimes students have to navigate not getting along so well, and it's too late to turn back. All part of the, life skills lesson side of this entrepreneurship program. So most of mine do go solo.
Yeah, I think it really depends. But again, whether or not they're in small groups, it's this question of trade-offs. And again, what a great lesson for a 17 or 8-year-old. The first thing that my students did is they went to their best friend who was in the class, and they said, you and I should work together. And then in that first semester, then later they realized, okay, we can be friends, but we may not be the best business partners. But these are great conversations, right? There's a question in the chat, but I also we have a lot of participants here. And if you're curious, I'm really curious. Lee and I, we wanted to save space for questions and for conversation. What is concerning you? What is holding you back? Where do you think, oh, this is cool, but not for my district or my teachers or my area? Because I think both of us would like to spend some time convincing you that not only is this possible, but it's really powerful. So I would love to hear from anybody who has just questions or concerns or is feeling like that as well. And Lee, do you want to take that question about barriers to participation and driving?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have a car or you don't have that available to you, that is a barrier to the CEO program without a doubt. On the other, I shouldn't say on the other hand, we are drawing from such a large pool that we can't take everybody anyway. With 18 schools, yeah, so, yeah, but it is a barrier without a doubt. We try to help with compensate if there's problems with, I don't have the professional clothes I need, we'll help supply that. I don't have a laptop, that's rare anymore with schools, but we'll help with those things. But the car could be a problem for us, absolutely.
And we got around that by having classes inside the school, but then frequently traveling at least, I wouldn't say at least once a week, but often once a week off campus. And we had parents sign a year-long permission slip that we got vetted through our lawyers that just said, as part of this program, they're going to be going in a small radius. So we kept it tight to the community. And then kids who couldn't drive for whatever reason would simply go and be passengers. And we got permissions from parents as well to go that short distance. I'm talking a mile, right? A mile to the downtown, a half a mile to, the local manufacturing plant to hear from them and take a tour. And so that's how we address that.
Mileage can be, it can be an issue for travel for distance. CEOs first thing in the morning. So the travel's on the front end before school starts. For us, it's no different than if a student were taking first block WAC program, career center program of any kind. It's going to take most of their morning if their school is in the outlining mileage area of this WAC, whatever I'm trying to say. You get what I'm trying to say. So the travel's on the front end, and then they will miss a class probably following. If they're a local school like Sterling Rock Falls, which is right here, most of our tours are here, they can get back and have that third hour class. That third hour class is travel time for some of my students, but again, no different than if they were taking any other class at the Career Center. So having it first thing in the morning is key for us. Definitely.
I want to address that next. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I tell you what, Bill Zenz has raised his hand and beat out a couple of the other questions. So we'll get to those questions in a moment. Bill, if you want to unmute and pose whatever question or comment you had.
Yeah, Aaron, Lee, appreciate your guys' time. We've looked at this pretty heavily. I run Chamber of Commerce down in the Illinois Valley area, LaSalle, Bureau, Putnam counties. And my question isn't so much, Aaron, you had asked about pushback, is more so support. So with this PACE framework that Illinois is launching and requiring career exploration, right, grades 6 through 12, that connection between education and business seems to be kind of inevitable, right? It's going to happen. So how can we kind of help push that forward, knowing that that's going to happen? We started with a program called Lemonade Day, which is geared towards 5th, 6th, 7th graders, right? It's an entry-level entrepreneurship program. For us, what would be fantastic is then to have a high school program in addition to. But how does this, have you been able to tie this to that PACE framework that's coming to say that this kind of fills those buckets, checks those boxes, just because it seems like it supports that fully? So leave that to you guys.
I'll go, Lee, and then you follow up. Yeah, 100%, Bill. Of course it does. Of course it does. I'm not sure if your question is sort of that binary question of does it or does it not. Yes, of course, yes on all sides. And also, like, again, like the benefit of CEO, and I want you to see Lee and I as like, two people whose overlap, the Venn diagram of our overlap circles is very big. I think one of the benefits of an in-house, program is that you can customize it to include those things as well. So part of my curriculum included budgeting, included financial literacy, included next steps, sort of like college and career readiness standards that I wanted to make sure they hit. So I think if you've got curious, interested teachers who sort of and principals in your districts who I'll be like, yeah, let's take a risk. Let's try it. You know, we want to make a go of it. They can build those in easily, right? But I would guess even just the CEO curriculum itself hits, if not all of them, enough of them.
Yeah, I would totally agree. It would just be a matter then of each school keeping track of which student was in CEO and could check those boxes. You had all Oregon students, so you had a large percent maybe of a class to check the boxes. I have 1 student from this school, 3 from this one, 4 from this one. I mean, when I had a class of 23 and we're from 12 different schools, that looks very, very different. But did we do those things? Yeah, probably. It's just not built in all neat and tidy with the bow around it.
Bill, does that answer your question, or is there any follow-ups that we can help with?
Yeah, I just didn't know, again, with that framework coming kind of mandated, if we can help push this to the schools as they try to figure out what makes sense. To me, this makes a heck of a lot of sense, right? Connecting students to potential opportunities, the tours, Lee, that you talked about, like that's part of that. So it just seems like if there's anything we can do locally to kind of help our educators, just looking for pointers, even if it's post this call, like how do you present these programs to your schools to make sure that they know what it is and show how it makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, like I've been to CEO presentations before. They're really compelling. So for sure, I'm sure a CEO or a representative would be down, right, Lee?
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting to bring education and business together, Aaron. I'm sure you realize that too. I'm an educator. I didn't know anything about the business world really to speak of. And we're all kind of operating in our own silos. And this is what these programs are all about, bringing them together. Well, the points of views are very different. I mean, educators think differently, and we need to change some of that. And it's a slow process. I mean, I have kids and even myself who, man, it's intimidating to go into the lawyer's office and talk with a bunch of highly educated, smart educators or attorneys. It's hard to sit down with the executive director and the president of the community college. That's very intimidating. I know education. I don't know that world, right? And the kids are with me on that. They're scared, like Aaron said, to shake hands with these people. But man, by the end, they're sitting next to bankers and they're comfortable with it. It's just crazy. Now, the flip side of this that I think is really interesting, on yearly, at least once, maybe 2, 3 times, I'll have a business person say to me, oh man, I'm like really nervous to talk to these kids.
Yeah.
Right? They're afraid to come into the classroom because what are these teenagers like? There's 20 of them in this room. It's scary to them. Isn't that interesting? So we have 2 parties that we need to get together that are scared of each other. I'm using the term very loosely, of course, but interesting, right, Aaron?
No, that's 100% right. Yeah, that's great. And Bill, from my perspective, I think if you approached any principal, just principals in the district, and said, hey, would you be open to an entrepreneurship program where the students got to actually start and run their own businesses, design and operate their businesses? If you have principals that are like, no, that's weird and strange, then that principal needs to, I think, take a hard look at what they're doing. If you have any principals that say, tell me more, like, okay, like, all right, then send them to Lee and CEO, or send them my email address. I do consult, and I talk to districts about how to operate this stuff in-house. So I think both of us would be happy to help educate and just sort of make this go faster.
Yeah, I would say, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to hit these make sure we get some of these in the chat. Is that cool?
Yeah, exactly. I'd follow up though briefly, Aaron, on one facet of Bill's question, and you kind of addressed it. What would you say the biggest hurdle was, since you were somebody who actually started from the ground, built it from the ground up? What was your biggest hurdle as you went to the various folks who were involved in the approval process to stand up this class?
A fair question. very little resistance, because my thesis and my question was, do we think that these skills matter? Right? Financial literacy, creative thinking, professionalism, persistence, adaptability, learning from failure, independence. Do these matter? If yes, where are they applying these skills in the community now? If nowhere, can we give it a try? Can we give it a try? And from top to bottom, I presented to the school board, the superintendent, and all of them were like, yes, of course we can. And so, I was able to build in English credit, elective credit, consumer ed. So my class was a consumer ed class plus an English class bound together, because all of the consumer ed standards are hit. So they get credit for consumer ed, and they get an English credit because they're writing papers and proposals and professional emails and being assessed on those things. So there's just a ton of opportunity and ways to do this. It's just a question of taking a risk. It's a question of like, what you see the upside, right? And what's the downside really? Like, what is it? Because we've seen, Kim in the chat is saying she's seen success by the 4th year. So the first year will be tough. It'll be a challenge. I'm talking to you, Mr. Wessel, who is about to start incubator at Byron. That first year is going to be a challenge. After that, the kids are going to start talking, and it's going to grow, and it's going to snowball, and it's going to be really something.
Okay, thanks for that. We'll go back and catch a couple of these questions. And here's one that is interesting, and I think, Lee, you had addressed it a bit in terms of the timing of the classes. What classes do these kids have to skip to have the time to take the CEO program? And does that create problems with those who want to go on to college?
I think that's a very school individualized question, depending on when they offer certain subjects. If they're offering calculus first hour and a student really needs that because of their career goals they want to hit after high school, then they probably need to take calculus and won't do the CEO program. It's a choice. It's a trade-off. Aaron mentioned the word trade-off. It's a great word to use for this. I had a student, and this is a little bit different point of view, but she did dance before school first hour her entire life. Her senior year, she gave that up for CEO. That may not seem like a big deal to us as an adult, but for her, it was huge. What are they willing to forego to have the experience? I'd like to think it was, I know she said it was worth it, hands down, never regretted it. I have not had a student say they regret what they've given up. Of course, maybe they're just not telling me, but honestly, it's a rave review when you can get kids out in the community, taking responsibility for themselves, giving them ownership of their success and their failure without repercussions of a poor grade. That's the other thing. I have to tell parents, let your kid fail. It's okay. Don't save them. Don't save them. They will not fail because they did poorly on their business, right? Aaron's shaking. You know what I'm talking about here. And that's really hard for parents. It's like, let it go. It's okay. I promise you it's okay. But it's very empowering. It's a word I like to use. It's empowering and transformational for the student.
So I would say it sounds like both of you have seen from your experience that a pipeline of students develops, so that you were never at a loss you never had too few folks interested in participating in the classes.
Year one is the exception, and everybody should be clear about that. The first year, it's only the brave students who are like, I'm going to dip my toe in this. After that, they hear from other students. They see those kids leaving. Where are you going? Oh, we're going here. For what? For the entrepreneurship class. How do I get in it? That's how. Yeah, for our end, they didn't skip anything because we built it into their schedule. And as far as the college thing, here's my challenging question to educators listening. Think of a college essay question, any college essay question, or any interview question, right? Because those overlap. Meaning, tell me about a time where you had to exhibit teamwork. Tell me about a time where you faced a challenge and had to overcome it. Tell me about a time where you had to creatively solve a problem or work with other people. Think of any of those questions, and all of our students can tell amazing stories about those that are unique. Take those away, and what are they saying? Well, one time I was in class and this, the teacher gave us a really difficult test. And right, here's the thing: kids who have straight A's are a dime a dozen. And that's the harsh reality for high achieving students. You know who's not a dime a dozen? Students who have actually started or proposed, gone through the process of creating a business plan, presenting it, running it. Those kids are not a dime a dozen. So if you're a college admissions officer and you have two piles and both of them have straight A's, are you going to take the student who has gone through a conventional system that looks at itself as the pillar of success? Or are you going to look at kids who have actually branched out, who have experience, who show promise into the future? And so it's a huge benefit for kids who are college bound. And here's the beautiful thing: it's a huge benefit for kids who are not college bound. My favorite students are the ones who came in and said, I hate school. And by the end of it, loved school, because they were able to see that learning and their passion, be it whatever. I mean, you can see some of the kids on that link. One kid did not do well. He was an amazing welder and a poor student. And he ran a very successful very successful social business because he was incredibly talented. And all of the students were like, how do you do that? So he found success in the classroom because of his unique abilities.
I couldn't agree more. And, sometimes people think, oh, the CEO program, you got to be a really smart student to be in it. No, it's often the student who can't sit still at school. They got 100 things going through their head that they can't get sorted out, and they want to be doing something. It's really the place for them. It really is. And then to your other point, I can't even tell you how many students have told me my essay for my college application was all CEO. I just talked to a girl who's getting ready to go off to college. She's like, oh, I wish you could have come to my high school graduation speech. The whole thing was CEO, over and over. That's, very common when kids get to experience the things that we're talking about.
One question that was posed here is an interesting one, and Bill actually alluded to it a bit with some of the things that they're looking at. What does a precursor program to this look like for age bands 8 to 12, 13 to 17? Again, asking for, based on your on-the-ground experience, can you help us imagine that?
I mean, yeah, we ran that too. So, I mean, again, this was in-house, and happy to talk offline to educators or principals or districts that are interested in this kind of program. But for the younger ages, lemonade stand kind of thing. So more in-house, in school, in district, project-based, independent, teaching independence, teaching professionalism, but really housed locally. So I ran an open program for my sophomores who they ran community projects. They were in charge of their own pacing. They had to sort of set their own standards and meet them. And that just got them ready for the mindset that they would be successful in entrepreneurship and later in a capstone program. But yeah, I think talking with teachers just to say, again, active, how do you get kids out of seats? Applied, how do you take their work and extend it out of the four walls of the classroom? And authentic, how do you put stakes in the game so that it's not just based on this arbitrary letter that is attached to it, but instead based on something that they care about? You can do that from ages 8 on up.
Yeah, I think, asking that question is very exciting. I love brand new initiatives. That's why I was so excited to get involved with this program, 11 years ago, because it can be what you want it to be. And then you can do the connecting on either end, whatever that looks like. As I mentioned, the 8th grade program that every Friday all year long, it touches on some entrepreneurial type topic that by the end of the year, they put together. It's I'm going to call it a trade show, but it's a, small scale, whatever. These are 8th graders, it can really be whatever you want. And then, for the CEO program, I have juniors who are like, oh, what am I going to do next year? That probably happened to you too, Aaron. It's like, I don't want to sit at school for the first 3 class periods because I'm so used to being independent, getting in my car and driving all sorts of different places. I want to do more. Well, I, in my mind, thought, what could we do? What can we do? We haven't done anything yet, but it could be something. You just got to get someone who's willing to take the risk, be bold, get the right crowd together, make it happen.
Well, that's very exciting. I mean, and Extension, this Community and Economic Development team at Extension, actually, one of our colleagues has developed some curriculum for the very youngest, the early grade school, that aren't necessarily full-blown entrepreneurship curricula, but are kind of help develop the thinking patterns and behavioral patterns that kind of lend themselves then to entrepreneurially oriented activity later on. I'll include that information with the materials that go out afterwards. Kind of a mechanical question here, but one that's still useful. What does the application process entail? That's primarily, I guess, for you, Lee, but Erin, did you mention applications as well?
None, just sign up. That's it.
Well, because we're, 18 schools and we can't take everybody who's interested. And we do want it to feel, I think we want it to feel a little bit elitist, like it's a big deal if you get into this class. You're willing to make some sacrifices. And as mentioned, you have to be willing to drive and wear this professional wardrobe every single day. So it's an essay. There's some questions about mindset and how you think, problem solve, things like that. And then there's a board that reviews them. There's also some references from, I think they need to have two, one from a school counselor, and so forth and so on. It's just, that's the general idea. I'm not part of the recruitment or selection really. Well, I'm kind of part of the recruitment, but that's one of the tasks that my CEO board takes on.
Gotcha. Another question here, and I think, Erin, you alluded to it pretty extensively, but just to reiterate, for you, did the program build up from inside the school, or was its motivating factor those outside the school working to get it started? And who's involved and how does it get started? I guess that applies to both of you equally well.
Yeah, so from us, it started inside the school with my own curiosity and initiative, but I want to send the message to the people viewing this that it's any district that has the sort of curiosity and initiative to take the risk. I'm not a business. I was a history major who teaches English. I have nothing in my resume says business. But you don't need to be a business expert. And I think that's another blocker, is that teachers and principals are like, well, I've never started a business. I'm not an entrepreneur. But you don't have to be. You have to be a guide. You have to be really the true essence of what a teacher is, which is not open brain, insert information. It's asking good questions, right? It's leading kids through conflict. It's showing them where their resources might be and watching them as they sort of stumble and learn their way through it. And that's every educator in every district. And so I think that is easy enough. If you have that, you have everything you need. And if you need more support and more, rails and more structure, you've got programs, like CEO to give that to you.
I really have nothing, to add to that. That's absolutely how it is. I mean, and you just need the catalyst to make it all happen.
Well, thanks. That's great insight. We've got a few more minutes left. I'd like to put up a quick one-question poll, just to help us evaluate the session today. If you wouldn't mind spending 5 seconds to provide an answer. Another question here that has been posed. Have you seen a difference in participation numbers following COVID? And Lee, I think we'll go to you for this question on participation levels. Have they bounced back to the pre-COVID level? Are they higher? About the same?
They're probably higher. We do have a second section. There are two facilitators actually. I'm on kind of more the west side. Emily is on the east. So our numbers have grown. What's interesting about COVID is because we were part of the Career Center, we never shut down. You know, the Career Center's hands-on. We were open. We did not go remote. We can't go remote if you're doing automotive and nursing. You know, we did not go remote at all in 2020, 2021. So that meant CEO didn't. And what is really interesting about that year is the kids couldn't wait to come because, you know, they were locked down, right? Their schools weren't in session. They came every day and couldn't wait to come to CEO, especially that year because it got them out of the house. So the biggest challenge we had that year is usually we did an event as they did plan some type of event as their way to generate funds. And of course we couldn't do that. So they had to come up with a product, and we used our commercial kitchen and they had to do a lot of research to figure that out, and actually learned probably more than what we did with an event, or different than an event. They had to learn more about distribution and the protocol of putting the recipe together. And it was, they sold 800 casseroles. I had no idea how much food that really was and how you store that much food and how many freezers that takes. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So that was during COVID, and I had a full class that year and hasn't let down since. So
Okay, so
no effect on us.
I wanted to share a quick anecdote. During COVID, when we got shut down, many of the businesses, shut down as well because they were in-person businesses. And so the students pivoted as a class, and because we're in a small town, they banded together to create a grocery delivery service to folks who couldn't make it to the store. And so they created a website, a Facebook page. They tracked all the money that came in. They got community volunteers, and they ended up being the partners of the Ogle County emergency response team, because no other organization was running grocery deliveries during COVID except these kids. And it was just like a real good testament to what it meant to them, and the sort of skills that they had. While everybody else was like, sweet, free time, they were like, how do we help? And they made it happen.
And that's so cool, because that was a whole different type of learning than the events, just like us. I mean, different skill set with spreadsheets and schedules and times and protocols. And it was just a whole new kind of learning for us. It sounds like it was for you as well. That's really cool.
Well, I tell you what, we are bumping up against our time, but there is one important question that Dick has posed. And Aaron's already provided his answer to it. Is yearly fundraising a problem?
Well, we don't call it fundraising. Of course, we try to use all business terminology. And as much as we try to make this not school, I try to treat everything like it's business. My kids call me by my first name. We try to make it not feel like school. We're never in school. We're not dressed in school clothing. So we don't use the word fundraiser. We have an event. It's maybe a business event. And it's never been a problem. They've always, I wouldn't say never. This year we struggled. They didn't have a good business model. They didn't make as money as they had hoped to. Their profit was not where they wanted. They made a profit. They did a second business to help compensate. They felt like they needed a little more money because there were 21 of them in the class. And it takes a little more money for that seed money for individual businesses to get started up. So, but I would say the answer is no. They figure it out. New plan.
Yep. Likewise, it's never been an issue.
Well, that's a great way to end our session today. And I got to say, thank you so much on behalf of the University of Illinois Extension and Rural Partners. I want to thank you, Lee and Aaron, for taking the time this afternoon to speak with us and to have the conversation about this really interesting and important topic. As I mentioned earlier to everybody on the call, if you registered for the webinar, you will receive a link to the recording in a follow-up email. If you didn't register in advance, just drop your email into the chat and we'll make sure to add you to the mailing list for the materials. I'd also want to invite all of you to visit our website to register for future webinars. This is the commercial part at go.illinois.edu/LGE. Of course, if you're a subscriber to our LGE series, you've already received the program announcements for all of our upcoming offerings. For example, this Thursday, August 3rd at noontime, you can join us for the next installment of Track A of the Illinois Broadband Labs Summer Webinar Series covering guidance for grant applications and grant management. And next week, on Tuesday, August 8th, also at noon, we're offering another program with rural partners on hemp and cannabis producer perspectives. That promises to be an interesting program as well. Again, throughout the summer and on into the fall, we've got a host of programs coming. Please remember also that you can use the same extension website to find recordings of a host of our prior presentations on a wide variety of topics relating to community and economic development. So with that, thank you all for attending today's webinar. Much appreciated. Have a great day, and we hope to see you back for future presentations.